Okay, everybody, welcome to Ending the Stigma, A Path to Recovery. I'm your host, Fred Carroll. We got Mel eating her dinner for breakfast and dinner on there. And we got Scott Silverman up there in beautiful San Diego. And of course, I could hear myself because I'm sure Mel's husband is listening to it while we're live. That's okay. He makes mistakes. He's supposed to. So how's everyone doing? How are you today, Scott?
I am great, Fred. I am great. I'm looking forward to, I think I'm looking forward to the topic this week. We'll find out more. And hopefully, we've met enough people now that someone will be calling in and asking some questions and busting our chops and telling you to shave and ask me to, start walking more and losing some weight from COVID. So, by the way, speaking of COVID, our governor just announced yesterday that the 15th of June, everything's going to be wide open again.
Oh, yeah?
Well, I heard.
And that's California?
Correct. California, correct. Yep. 40 million people will be ready to get back into whatever it is they're going to get back into. But, yeah, that was good news because that means that clearly the death rate's going down. But, of course, the residual effect of what happened during spring break and people not wearing their masks, we haven't seen what that looks like yet. It's good news. It's optimism. People are getting back to work and getting jobs, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's it's something I think all these states are going to deal with soon. I don't know. I guess it's just one of them things where they don't have a choice. There's no choice for them. They have to do something.
Yeah.
And figure it out. But and how are you, hungry hippo down there?
I'm good.
Yeah, your allergies, huh? You're having an allergy issue?
Yep, I am. I'm allergic to my guinea pig's hay.
Yeah, well, that's common, actually. Hay allergies are very common.
Yeah, it's only
so
during
what do
this
you do
time
to fix that? What do you do? Do you get synthetic hay or something? What do you do?
I suffer through it during this time of year.
Got it.
I bought an air filter purifier thing, and I put that right next to the cage, so hopefully that helps.
So is there like a different grade of hay or something you can get and import from small little village outside of Kansas that might be better or something like that? Or you just hay is hay and it is what it is?
I don't know. I get the Timothy hay so cheap on Amazon. I don't care. It's like I said, it's only this time of year when they are pollinating. So it only lasts like a month and that'll be okay.
God, I could not put myself through that.
Yeah, it would drive me crazy too. But
yeah, but I love them. So
yeah, well,
put them in a bubble.
Yeah.
No,
I'm sure you're not. So Fred, what's on your mind today? Because I know you've got something on that mind.
Well, today we're gonna. We had agreed we're gonna talk about more further into the Demi Lovato California sober, which is now spread to New Jersey sober and all this. So we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons to it, because during my research, I see that there are several pros and cons to it. And I think I'm very confused by it. One, not being an addict, maybe not understanding how that is, but I see a lot of good in it, but I also see the bad in it. And the bad, in my opinion, is Demi Lovato being famous as she is, saying this carries more negative weight than positive weight because of her fame. And the way I think she would have been better off just living her life and not announcing it to the public that this is how she was choosing to live. But at the same time, it's her choice. She's allowed to make these choices. So it's got a lot of pros and cons. What do you think of it from a addict standpoint?
Yeah, I love the labels. Thank you, Fred. First of all, I just want to make sure that everybody, understands what California sober is being defined as. So my quick snapshot of what that looks like. What did she say? We may have to reveal that as well. So California sober, from what I understand, is, I'm going to use an example, not necessarily her, but just an example. Let's just say that you were somebody who had a problem with opioids, whether it's heroin or prescription medication, whatever it might be. And, as we all know, she had a catastrophic event with an overdose, I believe, with fentanyl and other medication probably as well, and had, I think, 3 strokes, a heart attack, and I don't think her vision's actually even returned. So the piece that I read and what I understand is the California sober concept is you give up your opioids, but you continue on, or you bring into your body, mind, and soul other mood-altering substances, i.e. alcohol, marijuana, maybe Xanax, maybe Valium, but not technically your drug of choice or the drug that got you, into that, horrible situation. So as somebody in recovery, anything mood-altering me, because I have this allergy, which means I'm allergic to mood-altering substances, and if I'm self-medicating, the science, the history around recovery says that if you substitute, go on to other things, it's not in your favor that you won't end up going back to your original drug of choice, because that's what the mind tends to want to take you back to. So California Sober as an opportunity, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense generally. I mean, I think everyone should have a choice to do what it is they want to do to their temple, their body, whatever they want to do. It's up to them, as long as they're making, what I consider to be informed decisions. So when I heard what she was saying, and I didn't really know a lot about her, and doing my little bit of research, and all of a sudden I'm getting questions from people in the community. I'm doing a television spot on Sunday, and I this may be part of the topic. I'm not sure. We'll see what they say. But the idea is people who are out there who are casually using, or maybe abusing, or potentially borderline, or are involved with substances, decide, well, you know what? That's illegal. That's kind of harmful. So I'm going to go to marijuana edibles, or I'm going to go to low doses of methamphetamine, or I'm going to drink near beer, or, I'm going to drink, lower alcohol percentage. To me, that is a very difficult decision to see people make, because if they truly do have the addiction, then the odds are they're going to end up going back to what it was they originally did. So that's my big concern. And I just heard recently they've got New Jersey sober now. Maybe that's just the same thing with an attitude on the East Coast. I'm not sure, but that's my concern. Young people who follow her, and she's a major influencer for whatever level of influence you want to determine. But I understand she has a fan base in the millions, if not tens of millions, and she has a platform, and she can talk a lot about what she does. And it scares me that people will take that choice that she's made and adopt it to their life, and it's going to create even more issues that we've been talking about for quite some time now. So that's kind of my summary.
Yeah, and I agree that there's with it and stuff like that where I'm not, my biggest, I like her as a person and stuff. I have no problem with her talent and stuff, but she definitely has so many issues from a mental standpoint. I don't know if she should be even talking to the media the way she does, because I don't see her as a positive influence. I know this isn't 100% negative, and there might be a positive wrapped in it somewhere. I just don't know what her angle is. Why does she need so much attention brought to her? That's what I always question on her. And she's been like this forever, and she's very young. How old is she, Mel?
I don't know. Actually,
I think she's 20 or 21. She's younger than you, Mel.
No, she's older than me.
Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. I just heard I think she's 30 now.
Yeah,
she's 28.
28?
28. Yep.
Which is still
she was born 3 years before me.
Yeah, very young. And, I just don't understand. Maybe it's just me. I never understood the people that need to be. Her music speaks loud enough, her talent and her skills. I don't know why she also has to add this. It's almost comes off as a poor pity party type thing sometimes with her. And we're not just picking on her, but she's the one that's got the name in there. She's the one that put this out there. So what do you got, Mel? Do you have anything on it? Like, from a science standpoint, is there anything that this makes sense?
I'll share you some science, and then I will share you my opinion, because I completely disagree.
Okay.
So I did look up a definition of California sober. Granted, this has come from Urban Dictionary,
Yeah,
but
it's made up.
California sober isn't really a dictionary term.
Right.
So the best definition I found is a form of harm reduction that excludes the use of all drugs, including alcohol, and only utilizing marijuana in moderation. And so I looked up the definition of harm reduction, and it's a set of practical strategies and ideas at reducing negative consequences associated with drug use. And it includes safer use, managed use, abstinence, meeting people who use drugs, quote, where they're at, and addressing conditions of use along with use itself. And it demands that interventions and policies designed to serve people who use drugs reflect specific individual needs. And there's actually a National Harm Reduction Coalition, and they actually outline 8 different guiding principles central to providing harm reduction to people. So some of the, I did look into some of the research out there, because we have to also remember, like, cannabis is a recreational drug, but as we're moving further into, as we're moving forward as a society, we also have to realize that cannabis is a medical it has medical uses, and we shouldn't think about California sober so much, especially in Demi Lovato's case, as I'm just going to continue doing drugs. It's more of a medication than it is a like random recreational, I'm going to get high. So for the studies I found, there are 4 studies, one from 2009, one from 2012, one from 2018, and one from 2019. They, in their animal models, they indicated that CBD, which is the cannabinoid oil, which is one of the main components in weed, inhibits some of the brain reward mechanisms responsible for opioid reinforcing properties. A Columbia Care analysis showed that use of a proprietary formulation of pharmaceutical quality medical cannabis product reduced or eliminated narcotic use over a 9-month period in 62% of their patients. There was another animal study in 2018 that showed that CBD administration to rats using alcohol self-administration decreased their overall drug-seeking behavior. And there was actually another study in 2017 demonstrating that acute treatment with CBD had minimal effects on a rat model of cocaine intake and relapse. But there was a different study in 2018 that demonstrated that repeat CBD treatment did reduce cocaine intake in mice. Excuse me. And then there's another paper from 2018. Once again, this is another rat model, but they showed that CBD exposure reduced the likelihood that rats would experience a methamphetamine relapse, even under very stressful conditions. Some other fun facts I have a couple more. According to a paper in Cannabis Cannabinoid Research in 2018, the preclinical evidence suggests that the cannabinoid 1 receptors in your brain play a role in reducing the rewarding properties of opioids and preventing the reinstatement of drug-seeking behaviors. They haven't been reported in human trials, but some studies have shown that CBD reduced rewarding aspects of cocaine, methamphetamine, and nicotine use. But there are other studies that have shown that cannabis use has either no impact or may increase opioid consumption. And then lastly, there was data published in the American Journal of Psychiatry in 2019 that demonstrated acute CBD administration, in contrast to a placebo, significantly reduced cue-induced craving and anxiety in drug-abstinent individuals with heroin use disorder. So there's not a lot of like human clinical trials. There are a lot of animal models, and they are pretty conflicting in what they say. Some say it works, some say it doesn't, some say it doesn't do anything to either degree. So, I mean, this just has to do with the fact that doing experiments with these kind of drugs, especially in human models, is very difficult because even cannabis is classified as a class 1 drug. So you need like approval to even use it in test subjects. So that's what I have based on what I found. There's some science for you.
Okay.
Now, what's your personal opinion now? The second part of that.
Right.
I personally have no problem with Demi Lovato and what she's doing. People also probably aren't watching her actual YouTube documentary series, which is like 4 parts long, and it goes into extreme detail about her eating disorders and her drug addictions and her overcoming it and her opening up as being queer And I don't view it as attention seeking at all. I view it as her speaking her truth and being who she is and making it known to the world who she is, and that she's accepts who she is, including with all of her problems. And I think the fact that she's talking about it is not negative, and I think it's actually going to help in the future destigmatize, because she's bringing up conversations, especially since she was like, hey, I have bulimia and I had all these problems, and people around me try to fix it, and the way that they wanted me to fix it actually made my problems worse. So I just disagree.
From her individual side, I understand that. And I do understand it's okay for her to say this. And she is creating an opportunity for science to now examine this further. And I also do believe that with the non-success rate of the typical going sober and all that and going into rehabs and stuff, what are the numbers, Scott, for success?
Well, the outcome for the average person who goes into a 28-day program with the longitudinal studies that have been done over the decades, if they do nothing after their initial assessment and their initial treatment, meaning they don't move into recovery of any kind, they have a 95% chance of relapsing. Now, relapsing doesn't mean failure. Relapsing means that they'll pick up and use again, but they could go right back into a program of recovery the next day. And that's what's important. But the difficult part of recovery, it's a continuum, just like, going back to, as you said earlier, Fred, not being an addict, you may not get it, but you understand diabetes. If you're diagnosed with diabetes and you don't follow a protocol, and you don't monitor your blood sugar level, and correct me if I'm wrong, and put insulin in your body, you have a chance of creating all kinds of other high risk. But I want to speak to something, Mel, you said that I believe in. I believe in harm reduction. And one of the things that I don't hear her saying, or I didn't read that she said, is harm reduction. She's talking about replacement or substitution, or allowing herself to make a decision for her that makes sense. And I don't disagree with her decision. I'm not going to tell her to stop. I'm just concerned about the people that will listen that won't make informed decisions. But at Confidential Recovery, we actually use harm reduction, and we also use MAT, medication assisted treatment. And a lot of treatment centers won't even let you come in if you take other medication, meaning if you're not abstinence based. And look, most of the 12-step programs, you walk into the rooms of any 12-step program and you share that you're taking medication, they don't like it. They don't like it, and they'll ask you to leave because this is an abstinence-based program. And I don't agree with that, because that's one of the few places that's easy to walk into. At MAT, medication-assisted treatment, especially with opioids, things like Suboxone, things like methadone, things like Vivitrol are great tools. We let people come into our treatment center who have a drinking problem, just got a DUI, crashed a car, their attorney mandated it, and if they didn't get treatment, they might go to jail, and they come in and say, look, I'm still smoking marijuana. And we say, look, it showed up in your UA, and we understand, but we'd like you to think about it over time if abstinence might be a path that you want to get on, meaning we don't deny treatment because of that. And it's really an interesting controversy in the industry. But at the end of the day, I'd rather be talking to somebody in a room who's gotten off of heroin, which was killing them, and they're using edibles to sleep at night, to talk about how we might be able to taper down, reduce the dosing, and see if abstinence is a path they get to. And at the end of the day, if someone says, you know what, I want to eat these edibles, I have headaches, I have migraines, I have seizures, and it's medically supervised and it's healthy for them, I say do it. So I believe in harm reduction. I believe in medication-assisted treatment. My only big beef with her is her platform. But choosing to do what you want to do with your own life, I think anyone and everyone should be empowered to do that.
Yeah, and I agree too, because I'm assuming she doesn't have a scientific background, so she's not a doctor. She doesn't have any of these degrees, and she's able to influence millions of people, for the good and the bad stuff. So, and she's already, the survival thing. I always question survival. So she survived, 3 heart attacks, we said, and all these
3 strokes and a heart attack and major organ failure.
So that's why would we take advice from somebody that has had suffered through all these things.
Well, because she survived, so she's got the ability. Look, you know, Robert Downey Jr. is probably one of the classic examples of somebody who used to share. You know, anytime I did cocaine, I broke out in handcuffs. I mean, he did time in prison, state prison, and he's probably, you know, one of the most unique celebrities who have stayed sober this long, married, had children, has a foundation, is very philanthropic. So it took a while, you know, for him to do that. But his platform, you know, and I understand he just bought some huge acreage and he's going to create this medium for veterans. So, you know, if she can survive, imagine the platform she'll have for change, because ultimately she'll get to wherever she needs to get. And if she continues to have that platform, I think she will be a major influencer. So again, I think that this is an interesting time right now, especially with people kind of coming out of COVID, trying to figure out, you know, what do I do with the way I feel? I mean, I was with a guy, I think I shared this last week. No, maybe it happened after our Wednesday show. I've known him for decades, and one of his best friends lost his son to a 20-year-old to an overdose of opioids, and one of his longest clients took his own life, all within a 24-hour period. And, you know, the autopsies haven't been done yet, things of that nature. But I'm hearing those stories almost every day. And that just scares me, that people they've given up, or they've lost hope, or they just believe that what's going on is too shameful, too embarrassing. And there's no way, you know, they can continue. So they end up taking their own life. And that's the thing that upsets me probably more than anything. No matter how old or how young somebody is, suicide is just, you know, it's obviously a very extreme ending to anything. So.
Yeah. And like going back to what Fred was saying and stuff, another thing, if people like actually watched her documentary and it didn't just take things out of context that people say, she explicitly says in the documentary that she does work with a team. She has a psychiatrist. She has a, what's it called? A case manager. She works with all those people to manage her plan, her harm reduction plan. And it's not like she's just like, I'm just going to smoke some weed whenever I want. Like, she's being monitored by her team, and her team is informed and in the loop. And,
So Mel, let me interrupt. Did she actually call it a harm reduction plan? Because I have not read or seen the documentary. Because if she's calling it that, then that's a game changer from a communication perspective. But what I read and understood was she's made a decision that it's okay for her, now that she's off of her drug of choice, to bring other, I call them self-medicating, mood-altering substances. You know, but if a doctor's prescribing cannabis, medical marijuana, and said this helps with the headaches, this helps with the stroke, I mean, that is harm reduction, and that is medically supervised. And to me, if that's what it takes to help somebody breathe and sleep and eat and be normal, I think it's a great tool.
Yeah. I do too.
I don't know if she's come out and said those specific words, but if she's working with a therapist and a case manager, I wouldn't say that that's not the case.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do know her manager and somebody else involved in her life are not on board with this at all, because of her past, because they're very aware of her past lifestyle. The girl, she likes to party. She likes to be at parties. She doesn't like, which is fine. And she's a rock star. She's famous. My questions always come back to, she's never not been famous. She has no reality to the world, to the average person. And this is all in my opinion. I don't know. I'm not inside her head. I have no contact with her. And it's not, this isn't even a pick on her, because I'm not rooting against her. I'm just trying to measure the pros and the cons of coming out and announcing this. Is it going to be a good thing? Is it going to be, and we're only going to know in time. I just worry about the girl because of her past. It doesn't sound, to me, it doesn't sound like a great idea or a great plan to attack this, but I also don't have a medical degree either, or a scientific background.
Well, I know one thing, Fred, that if you suffer from, I call it the disease of addiction, it never goes away. no matter what you do.
Mhm.
It's like diabetes. It doesn't just poof one morning you take a pill or do enough yoga, or eat hay that you give to your, your hamster, not
Guinea
your
pig.
hamster,
Like guinea pigs.
guinea pig.
Mhm.
It doesn't go away. So it's part of who you are as a human being. And if you're predisposed, unfortunately, or your brain's wired that way, and you put things in your body that triggers that part of your brain, because your brain doesn't want to respect harm reduction. Your brain doesn't want to support longevity on the planet. Your brain just wants to say, give me more of that, because that is what we need. And that's the problem with this disease. And that's why we see so much relapse, and we see so much overdosing now, because people are drug seeking in a way that we've never seen before. And that's not even the big problem. The big problem is the stuff that they're getting. Look, the Portugal model and the Swedish model, where they've legalized everything and they offer treatment to anybody who wants it. I say, we've got to look at those models, because, the science shows in the short period of time that is starting to work. Now, Oregon, just basically decriminalized almost everything. And they're having a hard time right now, because what's happening is people are coming into Oregon that weren't there before, because they want to take advantage of that. So we'll see over time. But my guess would be, and it's still a big conversation. I was in another one the other day with a large group of doctors about they want to prescribe. People want to take marijuana for people who have been prescribed opioids for pain. And it's the medical providers are not going to do that, because for them, it's just a malpractice suit waiting to happen. So at some point, people are they're self-medicating. They're making their own choices, going, you know what? I don't want to do heroin. I don't want to do, Oxycontin anymore. I can't find it. It's too expensive. It's illegal, whatever. But I still want to be comfortable. And that, to me, is a self-defined form of harm reduction, if you want to look at it that way.
The other thing I was going to say, she didn't say this. This is my opinion. But I wouldn't be surprised if her team, like her medical team and her case manager, also suggested or like kind of supported this because of her eating disorder. I wouldn't be surprised if they are more supportive of it because she has such a severe eating disorder.
I think my opinions are all based against her. Forget about her talent and her as a person, as a human. This girl has been through so much mentally that I worry that the alcohol, well, first of all, the marijuana is not a problem to me. The alcohol is what I don't understand. Why does she need to drink still? And the other thing I saw was it is a little disrespectful to the true sober community. And that's where it's getting a negative kickback, is calling it California sober. It's like saying I only murder women, or whatever, don't call me a full-time fledged murderer, so
it's a part-time thing.
Yeah, it's a part-time thing. It's the terminology. They're taking it as a kick in the face for the people who really fought through this to become truly sober. And now she's making it cool to be California sober. And this is all in their opinion. And I understand that. I understand.
But here's the thing. Nobody in this world is truly sober. Everyone is doing some form of a drug. And we're moving towards a point where marijuana is a medically prescribed drug. So I get why people are upset, for sure. I would probably also be upset, but people also have to realize that, I don't know, that's just my opinion on that, is who cares? Like, to me personally, I don't care what anyone calls it. California sober. Okay. I get it. It's funny, especially since we're moving towards marijuana being like a medical drug. But
I think
that's all I have to say. Cause I think people forget that you are constantly putting drugs into your body. Like anything you take is a drug, even if it's holistic medicine
or sugar.
If you're putting it in your body and it's not supposed to be in there, it's a drug.
Right.
But that's just something different.
Yeah.
I guess.
Like I was saying,
out there.
I'm just so concerned over her. This girl has been through the ringer at 28 or whatever she is. I've never I can't imagine. I would never. This is why you can't just judge somebody off their fame and their fortune, because I would not trade places with this woman. I wouldn't.
She also,
I'm broke.
She also revealed in her documentary that she was raped. That's how she lost her virginity as a Disney star, and then she was also raped the night of her overdose.
Right. I
just adds
the trauma that she's gone through, and when you have that level of untreated trauma, I mean, it's not like a rock in your shoe or an uncomfortable pair of panties. It is horrible. Your mind, your body, and your soul. And my guess would be, just like with Michael Jackson, the people that were around him, that were, giving him his drugs, they're not going to, I don't think they're going to cross the line and mandate that you do this or do that because they want to be there, I guess. And I don't want to project anything because I don't know for sure. I feel bad that she's had this kind of trauma. And I understand as an addict in recovery, what I was doing to try to feel better. And it wasn't necessarily about just bad things. It was about the feeling of success. It's like a comfortable sweater. So, and those underlying mental health issues and those behavioral health issues, and who knows what happened to her as a child growing up, that stuff going untreated. If it was my child and she said to me, Dad, I cannot sleep, I cannot move, I cannot work, I cannot eat without some sort of help, I would do everything I can to get her the right kind of help. But sometimes, if somebody needs to take a sleeping pill or someone needs medication, I don't disagree that I thought about it the other day. What would happen if I got a phone call and my doctor told me that I have terminal cancer and I don't want to go through chemotherapy and I don't want to go through all those medications to, it does what it does to the body. Would I risk taking mood altering substances again? And you know what? I don't really want to make that decision right now, which probably infers that I might make that decision to be more comfortable. So, as human beings, we have to do what we have to do, but I would certainly go into it being informed. And I'd certainly want to make sure the diagnosis was correct, because God forbid they got it wrong and I jeopardized my, 37 years of sobriety. But again, if that's what it takes to feel better, and not just feel good, but actually to feel better, and it's a health contribution rather than a degradation, I think, we have to take a look at it. One size doesn't fit all. I've always believed that.
Right. So, and before we end all this, I think all three of us agree that we're pro Demi Lovato. We support her fully from her, from her things and stuff, and we're good about this, but it's always good to bring up these pros and these cons, and it's good for discussions and stuff. I don't think we went too far off. I don't think any of us are wrong necessarily. We're just, science can't prove we're right yet either, and we're in that mode. So we just thought it would be an interesting something to talk about today. So, anything else you want to talk about, Scott? How's your book coming?
I'm waiting to hear. I'm actually just listening to you earlier. I'm supposed to be going on to Amazon in the next 2 weeks to get my pre-sale going. Now you scared me to death. So I got to make sure that we get everything together. But I'm hoping by the end of April, the opioid epidemic will be out in print and downloadable. And I'm going to see if I can get it audible. And I'm looking forward to it, because I think it's going to be a great opportunity to really bring the conversation forward in a way that I believe everything I've done kind of leads up to the launching of this book. And then I have another book in my heart that I want to get out hopefully before the end of summer. So I'm excited about that as well. And then, I thought about the seaweed thing the other day, Fred, and I'm not going there, brother.
I love it. Love that seaweed. I could eat seaweed all day long, but maybe that's why I was sick last week. Maybe. Who knows?
Wouldn't that be funny? You say, I only eat 4 of these a day. I said 4 slices? No, 4 packets. Well, that could be too much of anything, my friend, can be bad for you. Right, Mel?
Yes, 100%.
Well, that, I know last week you knew that I wasn't feeling well when I started. It only got worse, and I have to record as you know, I record my other podcast at 10 o'clock to midnight on the East Coast. And I had to cut the interview short. We were doing a segment with Murray Schwartz, who is the creator of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. He's a friend of mine.
That's cool.
And I was doing a segment with him, and I've already interviewed him before, but he has a book out called it's called Red Mill. If anybody wants to go look, it's an amazing story. He was the CEO and president of Merv Griffin Entertainment, and he's an amazing man, a good Irish man named Schwartz. No, he's not Irish. He's Jewish, like every other person in my life. Like you,
that almost worked.
Yeah.
Good job.
But
you may have some residual effect from that seaweed. It sounds like you could be, some seaweed on the brain.
Well, it did. He was understanding, but you should have seen how sick I actually got. I had to keep going off air and let Jennifer take over. And if anybody wants to hear it, it's actually out on Saturday's episode. It came out. It's Within the Head of Fred. You can go check it out. It's rated R and it's comedy, but it's fun. But okay, so that's going to be it, right? I guess.
I think so. I think we've probably irritated enough people in the last 34 minutes that it'll hopefully stimulate some new opportunities as well. But, I don't think anybody here is judging. Mel's coming from science. You're coming from confusion, and I'm coming from experience. So we put it all together. We have a level of authenticity that cannot be matched by any other personalities talking about finding ways to end the stigma and create a path to recovery.
Yep. So that's it for this episode of Ending the Stigma.
Before we end, can I say something?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So just as I highly, highly, highly recommend listening or watching Demi Lovato's entire docuseries. It's really informative. It really gives you a glimpse into mental illness and eating disorders and addiction and, the struggles of being queer and being forced to act and look and dress a certain way, which is she explains why she cut her hair and all of that. So I highly recommend watching it.
Where can people see it? No.
It's on YouTube. It's on, if you go to her YouTube channel, it has different episode names, and I think it's called Dancing with the Devil. And there's different episodes. So far there's 4 episodes.
One thing I will say, you just said some words that rarely sit well with me when somebody says being forced to do this and stuff. She is not forced to keep recording music and stuff. She's making that choice to be famous. She doesn't have to be famous anymore. She could just
not to be famous. I'm talking about how society forces people that are queer to not. That's what I meant. I meant
what you meant. Forced to continue famous and look a certain way and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's part of being. She's queer. She has come saying she's fluid. She doesn't know where she stands on the spectrum, and she's always felt like she had to look a certain way, just in general, to be accepted. And like if you look at the music industry right now, and you see women, you expect them to look a certain way, to dress a certain way, and to act a certain way, and that all goes into it. And it doesn't matter if you're famous or not. We all feel that. So it's just interesting.
That could be for a different show. It doesn't fit this show too much, but it's definitely something. I don't know about you, Scott, at your age, we grew up in a certain time where I find it hard to change my mind because my mind is so wrapped around certain things that I was taught as a child, and it's hard to change. It is hard, whether it's verbiage, the words you use and stuff like that.
I'm different, I think maybe, Fred, because in my path of my own personal journey and recovery, I'm getting ready. I'm talking to a guy tomorrow, and I'm getting ready to start doing some breathing. I've made a shift this week. I've walked every day. I'm going to monitor that. I'm going to go tomorrow. And I grew up in a family where, we were taught that people are who they are. I had a brother who was gay, you know, that we lost him to HIV/AIDS way before, you know, as I think Fauci probably was one of the only few doctors talking about it back in his day when he was at UCLA on experimental medication, was holding his hand when he took his last breath. So I've always kind of maintained, I believe, as open as one can be about accepting people for who they are. And to me, the fact that we're not doing that, in my opinion, it causes more angst and more hate and more fear and more ignorance, which creates, in my opinion, more reasons to act out inappropriately and self-medicate. So at the end of the day, you know, sneak preview, my new book after the opioid epidemic is going to be You're Not God. That job is taken.
Okay.
And I can't wait for that. And Mel will give you a couple spots in there because I'm sure you'll have something to say about it. And that was actually the name of this book,
Okay.
but it got changed. But I'm excited about that. But at the end of the day, look, if everything was working in our world, we wouldn't be having these kind of conversations and watching this guy out of Florida and the things he's done to young people, true or not, and he's denying, and then he was looking for a pardon. It is insane watching these. You know, I'm doing something next week on an independent television station, and I'm coming out. Don't get excited, Mel. I'm coming out with a story about homelessness and what I believe is what's causing the systemic resistance to change by the leaders. I mean, Mitch McConnell said it the other day, business people, and this really pissed me off, and we'll do this next week, business people should stay out of politics. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? As a politician, you're supposed to be taking us down the path of what's right. And right now, we can't even get on Noah's Ark because the road is closed. So
honestly, politicians should stay out of politics.
Yeah.
Well, that was my point. I mean, that's exactly what homeless providers says. We're the experts. We know what needs to be done. Well, how long have you been at this? Well, 40 years. Has anything changed? No. Have things got worse? Yes. Well, maybe you need to tender your friggin' resignation so we can get other people in place to help create systemic change that really benefits the underserved, benefits the people who are undecided, benefits the people who are suffering.
I like when you get fired up, Scott. I like when you got fire in your belly.
I feel like my face is the same color as my shirt right now, damn it. And I'm not going to be able to eat dinner for another hour and 15 minutes. So I'm going to go have a couple of Rolos before dinner. Anyway, thanks for letting me rant.
No problem. So this is ending the stigma, a path to recovery. We will see you again next week. I think we're going to stick to this 7 o'clock if everybody's comfortable with it. I was comfortable with it. And hopefully we'll start getting some phone calls. So we're going to do some better marketing and try to push it out further. But if people out there could share this, that'll be very helpful. So we will. Somebody did say rant, baby, rant. So there you go. Okay.
Hopefully it's not a friend of mine.
Yeah. I'm Fred Carroll. This is Mel, the Science Gal, and Scott Silverman. We will.
All right. See you guys later.
Goodbye.